Welcome to Bayloric TV and this edition of Inside Story. We ask the questions you want the answers to. And now our host, Ingram Jones.
Hi and welcome to Bayloric TV. I'm your host Ingram Jones, and on today's show, Inside Story with Peter Fury, the trainer of Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is due to making his US debut at Madison Square Garden on April the 20th against former two-time cruiserweight champion of the world, Steve Cunningham. Steve Cunningham has just come off a controversial loss to Thomas Adamek, a fight that the world believed that Steve Cunningham had won. I wanted to hear Peter Fury's views on the upcoming fight, how Team Fury have been preparing, and their views, or Peter's views in fact, on the shock defeat to David Price. A lot of people expected David Price to win the fight against Tony Thompson, so the defeat left a lot of people speechless. And as a rival camp and a fight between Tyson Fury and David Price, which has been talked about for so long, I wanted to know whether the fight would still happen, whether the fight has gotten any closer, or whether the fight had moved further apart. So without further ado, let's hear what Peter has to say. Hello Peter, how are you?
I'm good, friend, thank you. You?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for talking to Bayloric TV again.
No problem at all, anytime.
Okay, so there's so much to talk about. We'll leave last night's events till last, shall we?
Yeah, that's fine, good.
Okay, we'll start with the last time we spoke was it was being weighed at whether Cunningham would be the next opponent or somebody else. It wasn't finalised, and so now we know it's Steve Cunningham. I know the week we spoke about it over Twitter, and of course over Facebook we spoke about the Cunningham fight. Then I went and spoke to Steve. Steve said that it wasn't confirmed. It was all negotiations. So now it's definitely confirmed now.
It is, and it's April the 20th at Madison Square Garden,
Wow.
New York.
Wow. I was watching Malik Scott last night, and giving my support to Malik, and it was on, I think, NBC last night, and they were giving it the big.
Yeah, I saw the first 7 rounds, but my video went off. How did it go? He won, didn't he?
Well, I thought he won. Most 8. 2 of the rounds I gave to Glasgow. Other than that, Malik Scott popped the jab, hit him with right hands, hit him with right uppercuts, left uppercuts, did what he really wanted to do, got to the points decision, and they gave the fight a draw. And on top of that, it was like one judge scored it 95-95, and I still can't get it. Why? I mean, the only reason I think behind it is it was because Malik wasn't a main event fighter. They thought that Malik was going to get chinned basically by Glasgow. Glasgow was the big hype guy, he was the KO guy.
So basically, Malik's lost on points.
Malik's got a 1 on points, and they took it away, so they gave him a draw. And yeah, it just shows you how crooked boxing is. So
yeah, it's totally crooked, because I just saw 7 rounds with Malik Scott, and he boxed 2 ears completely off of that.
Glasgow. Yeah, that's it.
Glasgow, yeah.
So, you look at that and you think to yourself, and that's an American. I made a point in a video I did afterwards. That's an American in his home, in his own country, can't get a decision. What is the world coming to?
Well, it's just crazy. The other one, obviously, giving it to Glasgow because he's gets bigger viewing figures and sells more tickets, probably.
Yeah, I guess so. And thing about Glasgow, they kept talking about Glasgow being this big knockout artist. And the last fight he had against Tor Hamer, poor Tor Hamer just sat in the stool and he quit. He didn't knock Tor Hamer over. He didn't knock him out. And they were hyping him up as this big KO artist. And at no point in that fight...
Let me just get this right then. So Malik Scott won, so how did he get a draw?
No, well, everyone, and even the commentator said he'd won the fight. But when it came to the decision, he got a draw. So
Yeah, well, they've robbed him blind. That's out-and-out robbery, and whoever the officials are, whoever's behind that, they won't ban him from boxing for life, because I've just saw 7 rounds of that, and Malik Scott has boxed 2 ears completely off him, so that's an outrage.
It's disgusting. But Malik Scott, to be fair, he said, you know what, things happen in boxing. He was just cool about it. He was like, cool, you know what, happened. I'm going back down to the gym Monday morning, and I'm back on it again. I mean,
yeah, well, I think he's one of these, Malik, because we met him obviously when he come to spar with Tyson.
Yes.
He's a very sure guy of himself, and he knows he's won anyway. So the draw, he's thinking he knows what's happened, and he knows the world knows what's happened. So he's been robbed there, but that's it. So I think he'll be happy knowing that in his own mind he's beating him anyway.
So let's imagine, let's take Malik Scott out of that situation. Let's imagine that was Tyson Fury in the ring that night and had boxed the ears off of Glasgow for 12 rounds or Adamek for 12 rounds. And they got given a decision like that. What would you do? What could you do? What could Team Fury do in a situation, and Mick Hennessy, what could you do in a situation like that?
Well, this is the unfortunate thing, because it's not a case of what we can do. It's a politics behind the scenes, giving these judges, taking them out for lunch, sweetening them up. Look, these things happen in boxing. There's nothing we can do. When that decision's given, no matter how much of a robbery it is, you can't reverse it. So you've just been robbed. But I think if they do that to us and try it, the mic's going to be taken off the announcer and selling them straight as it is. That you're all a bent lot of bastards and you've robbed us blind, and we won't be coming back again.
Shocking. I mean, that is not doing boxing any favours whatsoever. I mean, to be fair, NBC put on a cracking show. I think Algieri and a guy called Peralta fought. Brilliant fight, absolutely entertaining fight, cracking opening fight. And then you've got Malik Scott and Glasgow, which was another entertaining fight, because you're thinking, can Glasgow knock out Malik Scott? Can Malik Scott kick Glasgow up for the 10 rounds? So you're thinking, yeah, this is a good fight, because at any point Glasgow could land that knockout punch. But even up to the last round, you're thinking Glasgow could still do it, But it didn't happen. So you get to a point to think, oh, okay, Malik's won the fight, and then you get a dodgy decision like that. You're thinking, well, what's the point? Because the decision's probably been made before the guys even stepped in the ring, as if to say,
at least Malik hasn't got a defeat on his record, so I think he will know that he's got the win. The world knows he's got the win, because you'd have to be a blind man to see he's not won that.
I know. It's a shame. So anyway, moving swiftly on. So Tyson's making his American debut against Steve Cunningham. What was it that made you decide to have Cunningham in the end?
Yeah. Well, it was part of the TV companies, NBC. They wanted Cunningham. They rate him over there. He's had a harsh decision against Adamek, and obviously we've tried to get Adamek on a few occasions and can't get that fight. So Cunningham, he's the one that's been stepping up since he won the fight. He offered us the fight when we fought Kevin Johnson. He's also in frame, saying he would take the fight. So, respect where it's due. So we're giving him his opportunity.
So what was holding up the negotiation before that? I mean, because you guys, there was an announcement that, Cunningham was going to fight Tyson Fury. Then we went to ask Cunningham what's going on. Oh, no, it's just all talk. So how comes this announcement and people knew about the opponent before the opponent himself had said, yeah, I am having the fight? Well, why was that the case?
Well, I think when you hear it from me and Tyson, you're hearing the true facts. And we always said the fight was on.
Right.
It was just a case of sorting out with the TV, sorting out deals with them. And, probably Cunningham didn't want to officially announce it until it was officially done properly, which, I can respect that. But obviously, boxing, we're all about the fan base and, keeping the people in touch with what's going on. We're not into secrecy and all this shit behind closed doors. So if we hear a fight's on and somebody's agreed to take it, we'll tell you so.
That's great. That's fantastic. How important do you believe it is to have this sort of relationship with the fans?
I think it's majorly important, because a lot of the fans, believe it or not, I believe, need educating in boxing. they're getting behind, they're passionate, the English, with the sport, they're getting behind people, but they need to understand there's more than just an image, to be a world-class fighter, you have to be a world-class fighter. It's not about being Mr. Nice Guy, not stepping out of line, doing everything correct, and all of a sudden then you get chinned. This boxing, it's a brutal sport, and you have to get up to the top. You have to belong there, and sooner or later, you get found out. So it's good to interact with the fans and try and explain to them exactly, what really lies at the heart of boxing.
How do you deal with fans who are, let's just say, not as passionate towards Tyson Fury? How do you deal with them? Well,
there's a small number that are passionate towards Tyson, and they give me plenty of respect, and I give that back. But also, you get fans which is obviously the fans of other heavyweights, and I think they say things, and they say silly things really, which has no relevance to me. I'm just a boxing fanatic, I love boxing, and I try and explain it as it is. I'm not biased. I'm not interested, to calling names and you shit and this and that. It's all very uneducated by them, so I don't mind. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. It doesn't cause a ripple in the water, so I just reply back as what I believe, and that's it. If they don't like what I've got to say, then tough, because I only say what I believe. If it's right or wrong or not, in my opinion, I believe it's right. So I can only speak as I see it.
Yeah, so what makes you take that approach? I mean, other people are very secretive about what they do, and it's very hard access to get to certain fighters, and they've got to go for their PR agent and all this sort of stuff. Why is it that you've taken the approach to be so open with the fans?
Because I want things to be different. It's nice to have an interaction with the fans on a personal level. They're getting up to date information on Tyson every day. There's plenty of work going on Twitter. We speak to people, and they know about fights coming up, training. It's all good for the fans, really. It's keeping them in touch.
Fantastic, that's great stuff. So now the name is Cunningham, Steve Cunningham. In terms of the decision being made, was there any reservations about taking Cunningham? Because there was also Tony Ganso, his name is? Tony
Grano.
That's it, Tony Grano, who'd been, I believe, knocked up by Nicholas Further before.
We looked at Grano before we fought Johnson.
Right.
And that fight broke down because of dealings with Don King. So that fight never transpired. So Tony Grano was not in these negotiations whatsoever.
Okay, and there was somebody else you were negotiating. Shannon Briggs.
No, again, Shannon Briggs is lacking, just didn't get anybody else. But I think the main thing is here, you've seen what's happened yesterday. And this is a prime example, your fighter, if you're going to take a fighter to be a world champion, he has to dip his feet, he has to get wet. There's no reservations. Cunningham's a good fighter. He's a world-class fighter. And if Tyson isn't on his total A game, Tyson can have a problem. So these are the kind of fights we want, 50-50 fights, because he's only going to mature from these, Tyson. He's going to develop into a world-class fighter. And when he gets it back, because ultimately, on a world-class level of world-class boxing, it's a chess game. You've got to have brains, you've got to have skill, you've got to know when to turn the power on, to turn it off, take it easy, use all your feints, use your angles, use your moves. You've got to have all these things in line. And you can train as much as you want in the gym. You can spar as many world-class heavyweights as you like. It's not the same as getting in there and getting them rounds under your belt. So for us, the 12 rounds against Kevin Johnson was perfect. That put Tyson on another level. Right. Now we've got Cunningham. He's a slick boxer. He's going to be difficult to hit. Tyson's going to have to walk him down. He's going to have to really think. If he tries to walk on him too much, Tyson will get hit himself. So this is all, it's upper levels of boxing now, which is very good for Tyson's development.
Would you say that this is the best opponent Tyson Fury has faced in his career as a professional?
Um, I don't know really. I think Kevin Johnson's a very good opponent. A lot of people criticise him because he looked negative against Tyson, but Tyson totally took his game plan away. Now, people don't realise just how effective Tyson is when you're in front of him. So I think I've got to favour Johnson over Cunningham for the size factor.
Okay, for size. What about experience and being a world champion? Johnson's never been a world champion. Cunningham has been a world champion, so he knows what it's like to hold a world title.
Yeah, without a doubt, Cunningham's a very good man. We're not taking him lightly. He's a two-time world champion, and he's moved up to heavyweight, and he's had quite a good result against a world-class fighter. So he's up there. He belongs up there. It's just, we remain to see. Look at David Haye. He's only the same as Cunningham, and look where he went on to achieve in the heavyweights.
Exactly.
So, he's only come from the same background as David Haye, and probably done a lot better than Haye in the cruiserweights. So, because he's a two-time world champion. So make no mistake, he's a dangerous opponent. Very dangerous.
A lot of people are suggesting that, well, this is talk. Cunningham's a cruiserweight. And, Tyson, look how big Tyson is. He's 6'9", he's this and that. You'll just go out there and blow Cunningham over. Is that the case?
No, I don't think it is the case. I think Cunningham is a Philadelphia fighter. He slips and slides. He comes behind the shoulder. He's got all the moves. And I think if Tyson went in square on to try and take his head off, it'd be Tyson to be the one taking second best. When you're up against world-class fighters, you can't just charge in and use your size and power and take their head off, because that's just not happening. Boxing's a sweet science. People need to understand that. And any man weighing around 15 stone and 6'4" and built out of chisel and rock, is a serious man. And no matter who you are, if you get it quite squarely on the chin, you're going.
I made the suggestion that if Tyson doesn't watch himself in this fight, it could go wrong, because if Cunningham were able to get on the inside, and he was able to land punches, that if he's not careful, this could be a very dangerous fight. People look at me and say, "Oh, you're talking rubbish. No way. How's Cunningham going to hurt Tyson Fury?" So if he does the wrong things, it can happen.
Well, yeah, sure it can. And these are the kind of fights we want for Tyson. Because look, I'm not a Billy bullshitter. If Tyson's going to make it to the top and he's going to be a world champion, and that's face facts here. That's all I'm in it for. For Tyson to get to the top. I'm not interested in him trying to get a world title. I'm interested in him winning it. So if he can't beat the likes of Cunningham, and he has a problem, then he's not ready, and he'll have to go back to the drawing board and have more experience, because he's only 24. So, I believe he's ready, and I don't think, Cunningham, we're not taking him lightly, but I'm fully confident that Tyson will do a number on Cunningham.
Okay, good. So in terms of preparation and training, it's a cruiserweight you'll be using, I assume, to be training with. So somebody's going to be pretty fast. Is there anybody that you've thought about so far, considered?
For sparring partners, no. We're just weighing it up. We've actually got 5 sparring partners.
Okay.
And they're all lined up waiting for us in Canada.
Okay.
So, I don't really want to release those details yet, because I've not got the permission from the other fighters.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's understandable. I will ask anyway, though, just in case, just to see if I can get information.
Yeah, no problem at all.
I did suggest Chris Keane, the cruiserweight who just finished beating McPhilbin. Punch is pretty decent, good movement, moves like David Haye. What did you think?
Yeah, we got in touch with him, and he was more than happy to come over. We spoke to his manager, and but the only problem is it's breaking up sparring. Really, we've come down to Italy for a couple of weeks to ease off, and then we're going off to Canada. So there's no point having 3 or 4 days of sparring, then having 2 weeks break, and then having a load of sparring in Canada. So on this occasion, because it is in America, it wasn't ideally suited for us. But doesn't mean to say he's not suited for us for sparring in the future. And thanks very much for offering us that opportunity, because he was more than willing to come over.
Yeah, he's a good kid, Chris Keane. I think he's going to go places in the cruiserweight division for sure. So we move on. So your training camps have been for Italy and everything in Canada for training. Great stuff. So let's move a little further forward. I did an interview recently, moving things forward, with Franny Smith. And
me and Tyson heard that interview.
I'm sure you did. What were your first thoughts about the interview?
Well, firstly, you've got a middle-aged man slagging off a young fighter.
Okay.
Which is, to me, is out of order. Price has got chinned yesterday. And I'm not going to come on here to you and start slagging Price up and down and saying he's like a feather duster and he's this and he's that, because that's disrespectful, because I'm not in there throwing the punches. So, he should have been more respectful to my family. So I thought it was very distasteful of his approach, really. He's saying he likes Tyson, and in the second breath, he couldn't wait to give him an onslaught. So quite clearly, Tyson must have got under his skin and David Price's skin. But it's unprofessional to me to start slagging off somebody else's fighter to say, the things he was saying about Tyson.
Do you know what would have triggered him to say the things that he said?
Well, clearly it doesn't matter what Franny Smith has said, because Franny Smith, from his allegations of that interview, has proved now a 360-degree turnaround, hasn't it? Because everything he said has been wrong. He's been proven flat out to be wrong. So I don't want to go on about Franny Smith's conversation. He believed what he believes. We've got to respect people's opinion. But is he right? Obviously, no, he isn't. So we'll just move on from his interview, because whatever he said to you, to us, is totally irrelevant as of today, isn't it?
Well, it is, which moves us swiftly on. He made one of the questions I asked was Price's ability to take a shot, and his response to me that David Haye was sparring with him, and he hit him with a punch that could that would have stopped a horse, and Price was able to take him.
Let me just clarify with one thing, yeah?
Yes.
Tyson as an amateur was never ever rocked in any shape or form. Yeah. Tyson in sparring has never been rocked. As a matter of fact, Tyson destructs sparring partners. That's why he struggles to get them. Yeah. So obviously, when Franny Smith is telling us that he sparred Pulev and Pulev's had him in the first round and Pulev's gone in for the kill and Price has weathered the storm, this is rather humiliating for a big heavyweight at 6'8" and 18 stone to be having his legs tucked from underneath him in a sparring session. So if this is happening in sparring, and this is from the top of the line now, and any boxing world-class trainer will tell you the same, I don't give you bullshit. If you're being rocked in sparring, clearly you've got a very bad resistance of taking shots. Now, he said that himself. It doesn't matter how tough you are and want to continue. David Price has got a heart. He tries his best, he comes forward, but obviously when they hit, he can't do anything. Now, David Price's instinct was to get up off the floor as soon as he got hit. But obviously, his legs was gone. So he done a breakdance over the ring because his legs was not corresponding with his brain. And his balance and coordination was totally gone. So we're not doubting the fact that he hasn't got heart and he hasn't got a will to fight, because he has. He's been boxing most of his life. But when you've got that ability to not withstand a shot, where do you go in heavyweight boxing? In the lighter weights, Amir Khan, even Mayweather's weights, these kind of weights, you can possibly get away with it. But in the super heavyweights, are we seriously to think, unless you're really an elite fighter, the likes of Vladimir Klitschko, you can come back from devastating knockouts? Now, maybe he can, David Price, but he's 30 years of age, let's not forget, or 29. He's not a spring chicken, is he?
No.
He's not a young man. So can he do what Vladimir Klitschko's done? Well, he's got a pair of arms and legs and he's the same sort of size as Vladimir. So we hope he can. And we hope he can bounce back. But when people's giving us stick on Twitter, he hadn't done any rounds. He hadn't been hit back. We watched him against Matt Skelton. And, me and Tyson sat here and we've laughed at all the comments, to be honest. Because Tyson, he would play with David Price. He would give him so many angles, he wouldn't know whether he was coming or going. And if a 42-year-old man can do that, you know, who's slow, 20-odd pounds overweight, you know, come on, let's get real here. He's no match for Tyson. He's not in Tyson's league. And I've said this, the only thing he's got, Price, is a puncher's chance like everyone else. But with no experience and fighting dummies, when you do get into a sticky wicket where you've got to fight a world-class man, and even a world-class man who's at the end of his career is still too much for a domestic young novice. And that's what Price is. He's had no experience whatsoever. And when Franny Smith was saying, if he hits them, they're gone, clearly that told us he's relying on one big shot. Well, look what happens when you rely on a big shot. He had no jab. He was pouring with a jab. And he was giving Thompson all the time in the world to set him up and take his chin off. And that's what happened. As soon as he's got in with a live opponent and Price has stepped up, he's been found what we already knew anyway. So it's no surprise to us what's happened. Whether he can come back and learn from it is another matter. You know, drawn about him fighting Chisora, that's a very bad fight in my opinion. He needs to go back to the drawing board and start taking fights that's going to give him rounds. And, you know, he needs to pull back on his power and stop banging people out because he's not learning anything.
So, okay, you know, you talk about going back to the drawing board. It's a very cliche saying in boxing. It's not one of these sayings that people say, oh, we're going to go back to the drawing board. Going back to the drawing board, from what I've seen previously, well, I don't like using Amir Khan, but he's the probably perfect example. He got chinned by Prescott, and then he fought a bunch of guys who had no power. And then the next guy he fought that had any real power, again, was Medina. But Medina, I mean, he had him rocking all around the place. And he said, oh, great performance, Amir, great performance. And then he goes and fights a guy in Garcia who had one-punch knockout power, and we all saw what happened. So going back to the drawing board, to me, would think, well, okay, I'm now going to have to find out some sort of strategy to dealing with a heavy puncher. Now, if it's not in my makeup to be able to handle pressure, how can you go back to a drawing board? Surely that's a mental aspect and a technical aspect that may not be able to be changed at 30.
Well, I can only say to you, you know, if you know, I'm not their camp, I don't know. But obviously, when they're in sparring sessions and they're getting hurt and, you know, things like this, they got to question, you know, where his career lies. You know, as soon as he stepped up, he's been found wanting. And, you know, he hasn't stepped up with a Kevin Johnson like Tyson has, a 33-year-old who's gone 12 rounds as a world champion. You know, he's fought a guy which is decent guy in his day, he's a world-class fighter, but he's at the end of the road. He took 30 grand to come over, he's 20-odd pounds overweight, to come out and give it a blast for a couple of rounds. And if he does no good, Thompson will have chucked his towel. You know, and this is a guy that's put Price to sleep. So it's not really, it doesn't bode well, does it?
Some would say, okay, he didn't get punched, he didn't get hit on the chin, he got hit on the neck, and because he got hit on the neck, it wasn't the chin, so it was a different sort of punch, and that's why he got disorientated the way he did. It wasn't his chin.
Well, let me give you an answer to this, yeah, and I'm going to make it quite clear.
Okay.
When Tyson was sparring with Malik Scott, I was there, obviously. It was me and Tyson. And Tyson, he was on the ropes, Malik Scott, and Tyson hit him with 2 full hooks, either side of the eardrum. Now, I heard them shots go in, and Tyson has got a lot of power. And irrelevant what people say, Tyson hits you clean, he's taking your head off. Now then, with them 2 shots, Tyson busted both Malik Scott's 2 eardrums, not one, both of them. Now, Malik Scott, he bounced off the ropes and he come back with 3 jabs. And every time, as the round was going on, he kept shaking his head like he had a nervous problem. But his legs were strong, his balance was there, and he made it to the end of the round. And when the end of the round come, he put one hand on the rope and he was walking around the ring and he kept shaking his head like something was ringing in his ear, that he could hear noises. And the thing is, he said, look, he said, something's the matter with me here. He said, something's gone wrong with my ears. So we stopped it and said, oh, that'll do. You know, and he did. He busted his 2 eardrums. But Malik Scott took 2 flush, proper, serious hooks from Tyson. Yeah? Malik Scott never quit his stool, fell over on the floor. He made it to the end of the round. So it gives you an idea. He never got hit that flush on the side of the face, did he? You know, he's got caught with a glancing blow because he was was off balance when he threw it to Thompson. He just caught him with a quick hook over the side. So there wasn't really that much power in it, and it skimmed past him. It was a quick shot, and obviously it was enough for a price because it took all of his balance away.
So technically, what could have been done differently in that situation? Would Price have ever beaten Thompson, or was it a mistake that Price made? Was it the experience of Thompson that got Price into that position? Was it a technical thing, or just an off night?
Well, I don't believe there's an off night, but yeah, sure. Look, the problem is with David Price. He hasn't changed his style. He still fights the same from his amateur days. He's an amateur fighter in a pro circus. And the thing is, amateur and professional fighting is totally different. He's not parrying with his shots. He's not slipping. He's not sliding. He's not creating angles. He's just a jab and a right hander looking for a big shot. And even his jab, he's pouring with it. For Christ's sake, an idiot would know. When you're pouring with a jab, you're looking to get your face dented in because your jab's the main thing in boxing. If you ain't got a jab, you ain't winning world titles. So why are you pouring with a stupid jab? Because he took out Audley Harrison and had a result there. They think, I'm going to do the same again. Well, he's come short. The bottom line is he's got to go back to the drawing board and learn to box properly and work on his defence and, keep people long and do what Vladimir does. If he can do what Vladimir does, then he can come back. And if he can't, because Vladimir is an exceptional fighter, obviously, he's a world gold medalist as well in the amateurs, then there's possibilities. But what can I say? Look, it's his first loss and, other fighters has come back and they've made great comebacks. So
absolutely.
It's an open book. Anything can happen. We wish him all the best anyway. So
I mean,
he needs to seriously sort his job out.
I know there certainly is a rivalry between the Fury camp and the Price camp. That's no genius needs to work that out. However, in terms of that defeat, how much does that affect the bank balance? The potential super fight in the future. How much does that affect that now? Has Price's aura been destroyed because of Tony Thompson, or does that make a fight closer between Price and Fury because that's happened now, or that made the fight further apart because it's happened?
I don't think it affects anything. I think the English public love David Price, and I think if a fight was to be made tomorrow, it's £1 million+ fight. So I don't think it changes anything. They still think Price can beat Tyson. If Price had one leg and one arm, they still think he can take Tyson. So I don't think it affects anything really. Look, Price will have a few comeback fights, and he'll say I've learned from my lesson, and I'm a lot better fighter now, and the British public will believe all that, and he'll be right up there again. So of course it's a big fight.
What about a rematch with Tony Thompson? This is something they want. We'll get a rematch with Tony Thompson. What about that? Can Price right the wrong?
I think, if he was my fighter, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be rematching Thompson, because if he doesn't, then we get Cunningham out the way. We'll show Price how it's done, how we deal with an old man. So he needs to get back and beat Thompson, because when we get Cunningham out the way, I tell you one thing, we're taking Thompson 100%. So rather than embarrass ourselves, they need to rematch Thompson as quick as possible, because we will if he doesn't.
Your response to Thompson's comments about Tyson ducking him and all this stuff, can you clear that up?
Yeah, look, we got offered Thompson, but Thompson's on the end of his career. Beating Thompson is not going to do anything for us. Even though he's beat David Price and Tyson goes in there, if Price doesn't rematch him and does a job on him, it doesn't mean anything, but it's a payday for Tyson. The American public will want to see it because obviously he's beat David Price. But to me as a trainer and Tyson, that fight means zero. We're not going to learn anything from it. He's past his sell-by date. And, we wish the guy all the very best. But he's not for us. We've got no interest in him. He's an old guy at the end of his career. And, we're looking at world titles here. We're not going to learn anything from Tony Thompson.
Okay, let me throw somebody else into the mix. Did you know that Audley Harrison, A-Force, is back?
I'll tell you what I do think, and I'm being honest with you. We're fighting class A fighters. We've got Ingram. You know, we're looking at Pulev.
Okay.
And, we're here. You know, the winner of this fight is automatically ranked number 2 by the IBF. Mm-hmm. And then you've got it in writing that the winner, that if Tyson wins or, beats Cunningham, then they have to fight, whoever's number 1 in the IBF has to fight Tyson for the number 1 spot, which is mandatory. So these are the fights that I'm looking at. And let me tell you, I'm putting all my time into Tyson, yeah? And I won't waste my time if I think Tyson isn't going to make it. And I'm not going to come on here and make myself look silly if I think my nephew's flawed in any regard. He's got the capability to go a long way. And, that's what we're going to try and do. We're not going to say we're going to walk through Cunningham. We're not going to say we're going to walk through anyone. Because until we get in the ring and fight them and beat them, you've not beat them, have you? So we're going to do our best. But I personally believe that Tyson is going to shock the world. And he's going to unify them belts. Please God, we get the mandatory number 1. We get past Pulev, Cunningham, and Vladimir. Here we come. But as and when he does retain these belts, and he's got these belts around his waist, around his shoulders, because there's so many to fit on him, yeah? Then what we want to do then, we want to defend against all these and have basically easy paydays. The same as the Klitschko's have done. Because Audley Harrison isn't going to be a world champion. David Price, he'll get his shot, but he ain't going to beat Tyson. So basically, all these fighters are all good because Tyson's 3/4 up the mountain. And this is why we've not took the likes of Price, because we're not taking our eye off the ball. We won a world title this year. Once he wins a world title, Tyson can take on all of them. Wilders, Price, even Audley Harrison, whoever it may be, and just keep busy and, put bums on seats and get a payday. Because that's all I see these people as, the paydays.
Big paydays?
Well, irrelevant, but it'll keep Tyson busy once he's got them world titles strapped around his waist. So that's where we're going. We're going for the elite. Look, we can only try our best, but that's the route we're going. Well, we're not interested in the Battle of Britain. Look what's happened to the Battle of Britain. 2 rounds and he's over with his feet up in the air. What does that mean to us?
Well, it could, in some ways, be a warning. If you don't take your opponent seriously and you were to make a mistake, this is what could happen. That is, if anything, that should inspire Tyson to train even harder for this upcoming fight against Cunningham.
Yeah, but the thing is, make no mistake, Price and Franny Smith didn't underestimate Thompson, did they? Because we've heard Franny Smith's interview. They highly rated Thompson. Didn't think he was a factor. They didn't think he was 20 pounds overweight a factor. They seen him as the real deal. They thought Audley Harrison was a title fight. So you can imagine how they view Thompson. So they haven't took anybody not seriously. Price has fought the best he could, and he's come short. But ultimately, we're not displacent and thinking to ourselves, oh, well, we got Cunningham, he's a cruiserweight, this. We take every fighter very, very seriously, and I think that reflects in Tyson's performances because, we take into account and do the best we can with every fight. It's a serious fight because your first fight can be your last fight. So, especially when Tyson's so close, there's no corners being taken.
So now you're going so you'll get the number 1 spot for the IBF. That's what you're looking to target for a mandatory spot. Now, what happened to the fight you had with Kevin Johnson in the WBC ranking? How does that work?
Well, the WBC promised us a lot of things. It was a final eliminator or a semi-final. They regarded it as. Tyson won. They moved him to number 3. Jonathan Banks slips in. They pushed Tyson to number 4. So I don't really know what they're doing, but this situation's come up, and we'll take that route. And we've always wanted to fight decent fighters. Pulev's a very good fighter. Cunningham's a good fighter. So it's an ideal route for us, so we're happy to take it because these are good fighters which will put Tyson in good stead to challenge the world title.
Okay. I want to talk about something else. This is slightly a little bit off the subject of sort of Tyson Fury, but mainly more of you as a trainer and other trainers. Now, the reason was the situation where I think Adam Booth started training a guy called I think it's Aiden. I think his name is.
Yes, I've seen him. Yeah.
Yes. Now, you hear a lot of British fighters, if they get beat or their career's not going the way they want it to go, they head off to the States and they look for a trainer in the States to rejuvenate their career and teach them stuff. How comes guys from the States don't come to the UK for a fight to get trainers? And how successful, that's one. And two, how successful do you think our British trainers could be in the States too?
I don't think the British trainers could be successful in the States at all. You know, I think the States has got it all. You know, they're steeped in history, in fight knowledge. You know, what they don't know, a lot of these people, you know, that's been passed on from the old trainers, Custamato and all of these, you know, Eddie Futch, you know, all these people, they've passed this on to the people that was under them in the gym. So all of these methods they've got has been passed on. It's just that the fighters they've got have not been up to scratch. But it's no reflection on their methods. You know, you've got some of the best trainers in the world. What they don't know about boxing, America, you know, is not fit to know. So they've got it all there. They just need to need the quality of the fighter to match the knowledge. But as far as English trainers go, you know, look, they're doing a good job, aren't they? You know, there's some very good English fighters, but this is England, and that's America. So that's the difference.
So you don't think, in terms of the trainers we've got here, generally they're not the same standards, and you say simply because of the experience these other trainers have got, because of the background, the history of boxing they've had behind them. That's been the difference, you think?
Well, you can train a fighter as much as you want. It comes down to when the fighter's got all the tools, and he's trained and he's skilled and he's got everything going for him and he's doing everything correctly, then it comes down to brains, doesn't it? You know, it comes down to tactics, how you're doing it, you know, how to work the opponent, start controlling your opponent, and it comes down to mind games. So that's where you are. So this is the difference.
Okay.
So it becomes, it's like Lennox Lewis said, it's a chess game at the very top.
Chess at the very top. As you speak about Lennox Lewis, I do need to touch on this point. Steve Bunce and Box Nation kept referring to David Price as the reason why, when Price got knocked out, he said, oh, well, you know, Lennox Lewis got knocked out twice, so he can come back from that. But I kept saying that when Lennox Lewis got knocked out, at both times he'd been knocked out. Once he was WBC champion, and the other time he was undisputed world champion. And at both times he came back and rectified the situation, you know, because Lennox technically was better than the guys that beat him. You know, and so
Lennox got complacent, you know.
Yes.
He was moving around trainers. Obviously, he was uncomfortable. And when Lennox got it with the likes of Oliver McCall, these are big diggers, yeah. And the shot that Lennox took would have knocked a mule out. He took it flush on. He made a grave error. Now, this doesn't mean to say that you've got a weak chin. If you put your chin out and it gets off, you've made a very big mistake, haven't you? So, and you know, he's come back Lennox and rectified it. He's come back Lennox and rectified it. You can't put Lennox Lewis in the same ballpark of what's happened to David Price yesterday. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I've said that myself, and people look at me saying I'm a complete madman. I said, well, you know, commentators have got a responsibility, and pundits have got a responsibility, because they are the guides. They are they are telling you what's going on. They're giving you a professional report as to what is actually happening. So you, the blind fan, look to these commentators as gods almost, you know, because. But the person that's a bit more knowledgeable about boxing will say, hey, that's not true. That's not true. That guy's not world class. And that guy got chinned because technically he's not good enough. Why do they do things like this?
Well, you know, they know the promoters. The promoters that's probably got the fighter are paying their fees. You know, it's all about keeping everybody happy. Where with me, I don't give a shit. You know, nobody's controlling me in any regard. And, you know, look, you know, let's get back here to one thing, and let's have it right in the cold light today. This was a very, very poor performance yesterday. You know, he's been beat by an American who's on his way out, who's come for 2 or 3 rounds. And to get beat like that, you know, it's shocking. So let's face facts. Price has had a shocking defeat. It's horrible. You know, he got took to school by somebody with hardly no reflexes, a lot slower, and a 30-year-old man or a 29-year-old against a 42 fat, you know, old guy with ring experience. Shouldn't have done that to him. So let's get everything clear here. That's a crap performance. It can't get any worse than that. So basically, Price needs to go totally back to the drawing board. Can he come back from it? Yes, he can. But that depends on him as a human being. You know, Price has got to look at it like this. It cannot get any worse for him the way it is today. He can only get better, steal his resolution, look to learn, soak up like a sponge, and get further advice, and get professional, get people who's used to the professional game, and come out with that amateur style, because you're going nowhere with a 1-2 and a jab. You know, you've got to have all the tools in the box. And if they need help, they need to go to America, go wherever, and get the experience they need. They need training properly, and he needs to start back from zero. Can he do it? Vladimir has done it, so he's got a pair of arms and legs. He should be able to do it. Do I think he can do it? Well, that's up to David Price. He's got the ability. So, good luck to the fella. And we've got nothing against David Price. It's all the fans, you know. Price will do you know, this and that. We knew all along that Price is what his limitations are. We know very well that a fighter turning pro that's demolishing people in 1 or 2 rounds has got no experience. So this is what's happened, you know. World-class boxing is not world-class boxing for nothing. You know, you have to earn your right to get there. And Price, you know, he can come back from it. You know, whether he's got good punch resistance or not, only time will tell. It doesn't look good at the moment. That's all I can say.
Okay, just to close, I want to really finish on the US debut. What's the feeling like knowing you going to America and making this US debut on a big network? What are the changes that are going to be necessary for you to transition from boxing here in the UK or in Europe and now having to go to America? Is there any changes that Team Fury need to have or do, or are you going to do exactly the same thing?
No, look, we're confident, you know, we travel around, so being in different places to us or America, you know, we could be training on the moon, you know, it wouldn't matter, you know, it's irrelevant to me to where we are, because it's with me, Tyson, and with my son and my other nephew, it's a one-on-one situation. It's about talking to the fighter, practicing things, pulling them up, do it this way, do it that way, and getting them where I see them and where I want to be with every fight. And, you know, with Cunningham, Tyson's coming out a different fighter altogether again. So, you know, it doesn't matter where we are, where we train. You know, I've got a plan in my mind. It's clear. We know where we're going, and we're going to execute it the best we can. And, you know, who knows? Anything can happen in boxing. That's why the heavyweight division is so interesting. So, it remains to be seen. So April the 20th will be interesting.
But there'll be more questions being asked of Tyson. I'm sure he'll be ready to answer those questions.
Yeah, sure. You know, Tyson's ready to speak, and you know, and that's it. You know, there's not a lot to be said really. We're going to go on. We wish Price all the very best with his trainer, and wish him all the very best for the future. You know, we're getting on with our job. Forwards, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll be cracking on the challenging for a world title, and that's our aim.
Peter Fury, thank you so much for talking to Bayloric TV.
You're more than welcome. It's lovely to have me, and I really appreciate it, and I look forward to speaking to you on Twitter.
Thank you so much, Peter. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.
No worries. All the best.
Bye-bye.
So there you have it. Peter Fury talking to Bayloric TV on the inside story regarding Steve Cunningham and the American debut, and also Aldi Harrison's win in Prize Fighter, and the shock defeat that David Price experienced over the weekend. It's always great when you have the opportunity to do these interviews. The purpose of Bayloric TV, or the inside story, is to ask the questions that you, the fans, most want to hear the answers to. In none of these interviews do I intend to embarrass or to upset or to cause offence. It's always about finding the questions to ask, to get the answers that we most want. In a world of short interviews and almost the same sort of questions being asked over and over and over again, we don't really get to know the fighters, all the people behind the fighters, the backroom staff, the trainers, the publicists. So on Bayloric TV, on the Inside Story, I hope to ask the questions that we get to know more about their character, get to know more about them, and get to know and bring them closer to us in terms of when we watch them. Because for me, it's always great. Like the other night, I did an interview with Malik Scott, and to be able to then have the interview, talk to Malik Scott, and then a few days later on seeing him fight on NBC Sports, I was that much more interested in seeing the fight, because that was somebody I did an interview with. It's somebody I knew a little bit more about, and it wasn't just another person with a pair of gloves showing their skills off. So I hope that Bayloric TV and the Inside Story is bringing you closer to the fighter, and in the future I hope to have more fighters on the show, and not just fighters and boxers. It's about talking to champions in different industries, not just boxing. I love boxing, so as you can see, there's a bias. There's a lot of boxing videos at the moment and interviews. In the near future, we hope to do live videos and to go on location. So this is Ingram Jones with Bayloric TV. I hope you've enjoyed this show, and I hope you can join us for another show soon. Take care now. Goodbye.